Alright folks, this is Stick Stickly with Nick in the Afternoon. I miss that little guy. So, once again, this week I'm doing something a little different. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, and that's talk about the changes that Nickelodeon has made over the years. Now, I may not look it, but I was actually born in '87, and so I watched Nickelodeon from, I'd say, the early '90s up to about the mid-2010s. Certain shows, anyway. And every now and then I might tune in and out, see what's on there, like, you know, for shows and stuff, but it begs the question that it's like, I think most of us, whether you're a '90s Nick kid, a 2000 Nick kid, whatever, it's like, what happened? Yeah, and the most common question is, other than what happened, is like, did the network really go downhill, or did we just grow up? The thing is, I think it's both, you know. Let me kind of address both of these, although one I'm going to address more than the other. For one thing, it's true that as we get older, you know, we go from a kid to a teenager to an adult, you outgrow certain things, you know, your interests will change. And, I mean, there are shows that I loved as a kid, like, that, you know, I'll go back and rewatch, and it's like, okay, this one is still pretty good, like, it still holds up pretty well, or makes me laugh, and then others, like, not as good as I remembered, or not as funny, or whatever, but, so, like I said, and obviously everyone's different, like, you know, that's just, like, TV shows. There are other things he obviously outgrow too, myself included, but I also think that the network itself has kind of, it's not as great as it once was. And there's, well, a number of reasons for that. For one thing, you have to look at the success of, like, streaming services, which, not even just, like, through, like, a TV, but, like, you know, also, like, smartphones and tablets and stuff, you know, Nickelodeon, like, not even just Nickelodeon, but in general, it's like, TV is slowly dying, you know, like, you don't have that, you know, Nickelodeon was, like, in the '90s and 2000s, too, it was, like, almost like this magic coming through the TV screen, so to speak, which, it's, like, almost like a dying thing, like, you don't necessarily need it anymore, so to speak. Another thing is that I feel like they've lost a lot of their best creators over the years, which I'm not going to go through them all, and another one is that Nickelodeon Studios, where, you know, it used to, where they filmed a lot of the live-action shows and the game shows, where they would show them, you know, it's like the end of every episode, or every show, it would say, like, this show was filmed in front of a live audience at Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida. It would show, like, the building and then, like, the slime fountain. And so, the building closed down in 2005, which I looked into it. There's mainly two reasons. One, both of these happened, like, in the earlier 2000s. One was that the building was damaged by a hurricane, and the other was that audiences there slowly started to decline. Like, you know, they started seeing less and less of them, so, which is why the building closed down. It's actually used for, like, Blue Man Group now, which, that's cool and all, but, yeah. But, and it's just like, well, probably the biggest thing is, well, they went corporate, you know? You know, they, basically everything, the whole thing now is run by, like, these network executives and corporate bigwigs. I don't want to sound like that guy, but it's true. I mean, look at it. It's just like, the problem with the network now is the lack of variety and originality. Like, it's, one second, I just gotta get a drink of water. I gotta drink more water than a fish. Anyway, a perfectly good example is, look at, like, the logo, you know, where it's, like, not even just for, like, Nickelodeon, but the other networks, like Teen Nick and Nick Jr. and stuff, and then just, like, the other time slots, like Nick Jr. and, you know, because Nick Jr. has its own time slot as well as its own channel, and, like, Nick at Night, you know, it's, like, it's all, back in the '90s, you know, the Nickelodeon logo, like, you know, the little bottom corner of the screen, in the '90s, for Nickelodeon, it was, like, the iconic orange splat. Then for Nick Jr., it was, like, these paper cutout dolls you know, like there was a parent that said, or adult that said Nick, and then a little, which was orange, and then there was a blue child that said Junior for Nick at Night. It was, what the hell do you call it? The words Nick and Night were black and white, and then there was a crescent moon behind it. And over the years, these would, like, you know, they'd change in shape and size, but if you look at them now, it's just like, it's like this very generic, bland typing. Like, they literally all look the same. It's the same font, is the word I was looking for. Like, it's all the same thing. It's like, where's the originality? Why isn't it, doesn't, like, stand out like it used to? And then the time slot is just, if you still have cable or satellite, look at the Nickelodeon time slot. Most of it is occupied by SpongeBob, or even, like, Nick at Night, or I'll get back to that in a second, but even fucking Nick at Night, for example, like, I remember back in the 90s, that was shows like, you know, like I Love Lucy, Munsters, I Dream of Jeannie, what the heck was the other one? Bewitched, and, you know, obviously those others, those are just the ones I'm thinking of right now. And then in the early 2000s, it was like Different Strokes, Gilligan's Island, Three's Company, The Facts of Life. You know, it was like variety. They would change it up and stuff. Now it's just back-to-back episodes of, like, Friends or whatever. What's the one that's on there now? Young Sheldon or something, which I've never heard of. Friends I remember from the 90s, although I never really got into it. But getting back to SpongeBob, where it's like, you know, like back-to-back episodes of SpongeBob. And there is other shows in there, like The Loud House is a Nicktoon that's been around for a few years now, and I like it. I think it's a pretty good show, but, you know, and then a lot of the live-action stuff I just can't get into. But back to SpongeBob, you know, I love SpongeBob. You know, I watched it from its debut in '99, and then somewhere around the late 2000s, I kind of started tuning it in and out. You know, I would watch, like, new episodes here and there, and then even nowadays, I'll watch, like, occasionally I'll watch some of the certain reruns, or, what the hell do you call it? Every once in a blue moon, I'll watch, like, a new episode. But it's just like, where's the variety? Like, what happened to the variety? You know, and that's, I think the YouTuber SaberSparks said it best, that it was like, you know, at least when Rugrats was the king of Nickelodeon, it had competition, which is true. Like, back in the 90s, Rugrats was, like, the #1 kids show on there, but it wasn't just, like, back-to-back episodes of Rugrats, you know? And that's the thing, you know, it's like, because what it is like, they found something that works. It's like, you know, whether it's, I'm sure there are other people like me who will watch certain reruns of SpongeBob, and maybe an occasional new episode, and there's people who watch it, like, religiously, like, you know, they'll watch it, like, and keep in mind, this is a show that's loved by people of all ages, because that's another thing I wanted to mention, is that it's true that Nickelodeon is a kids network. You know, that's always been their target demographic, but just because something is aimed at kids doesn't mean adults can't enjoy it. You know, it's just that some adults may not enjoy it as much as others. You know, there's still plenty of other people who love cartoons. Adults, I might add. Yeah, not just ones that are aimed at, like, you know, obviously you have, like, adult cartoons and stuff, but some people still like the classic stuff. But, yes, where's I going with this? So, but anyways, like, SpongeBob, it's like one of those shows that, you know, like I said, some people will watch certain reruns, some people watch it religiously, like, all the reruns, all the new episodes and stuff, so it's like, the network executives and stuff are like, well, like, what's the point of trying anything new? Like, what's the point of changing? Like, hey, people are gonna watch this show, and, you know, they look at SpongeBob and they see dollar signs, so they're like, why change a good thing, you know? But, you know, there's such a thing as too much of a good thing, because, well, let me get back to the whole point of the variety. Like, let's go back to the year 96, where a number of shows made their debut. For Nicktoons, there was Kablam and Hey Arnold. For live-action shows, Kenan and Kel, Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, and Space Cases, maybe like one or two others, but even with these shows debuting, you still had reruns of Rugrats, Clarissa Explains It All, Doug, Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life, Hey Dude, maybe Salute Your Shorts was still on, My Brother and Me, The Secret World of Alex Mack, Our Real Monsters, I don't think I mentioned that one yet. What else was there? I know there's more. Legends of the Hidden Temple. think I already, Are You Afraid of the Dark, all that, and I'm sure there was probably others, like, and some of these episodes some of these shows not only were there reruns, but some of them were still putting out new episodes, and they also had reruns of shows that originated on other networks, such as Tiny Toon Adventures and Beetlejuice, the animated series, which I don't think it was called the animated series, it was just called Beetlejuice, but I don't want to confuse you with the movie. And there was reruns of 80s cartoons, like Inspector Gadget and Muppet Babies, and there was reruns, I know I said "and" like 6 times, but there was reruns of shows such as Rocky and Bullwinkle and Looney Tunes, which Rocky and Bullwinkle I never really was a fan of, but the point is, that's a massive lineup right there. Look at that huge line of variety. You know, and some of these shows were more successful and had a longer run than others, but it proves my point that they would take risks and try something new. You know, and another good example was, let's go back. I'm going to actually combine 2 years together. So in 2004, we saw the debut of the Nicktoon Danny Phantom, and then we saw the debut of the live-action shows on Fabulous, which wasn't really a fan of, and there was also Drake and Josh, and Ned's Declassified School Survival Side, which all those shows I liked. You know, like I said, on Fabulous, wasn't really a fan. And just the following year, we saw the debut of the live-action show Zoey 101, and for Nicktoons, we saw the debut of Cat Scratch and Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was a massive success. You know, many people of all ages consider it to be the greatest Nicktoon ever made. This was also the debut of the show Mr. Meaty, which it was a show with puppets, like these kids that worked in a fast food restaurant. It was awful. The only thing that I thought, for me, that was kind of funny about it was that the 2 main characters looked like my brother and a friend of his, but yeah, that was probably the worst show Nickelodeon ever made. But the point is, it still debuted that year, and again, with this 2-year span, even with these shows debuting, we still had reruns of the 2000s, all that. My Life as a Teenage Robot, As Told by Ginger, I think, Invader Zim, All Grown Up. What else was there? SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, obviously. Cat Dog, Hey Arnold. Maybe a few others, but you get my point. Like, again, it was a variety. You know, again, some of these shows were still putting out new episodes, you know. Like I said, you had variety. But now it's like, you know, like I said, they just look at SpongeBob and it's like, oh, like, I guess that's all we need. Why try something new? Why try chances? Why do something new? And another thing is that a lot of these shows, like, nowadays are just so, they don't have that, like, depth. Like, it's just, like, SpongeBob, as much as I like SpongeBob, it's like 95% comedy. It's like all these other shows that they used to have had, like, you know, there was like more of a variety. You know, again, I know I say variety a lot, but a perfectly good example was Hey Arnold. That show had like a good blend of, like, you know, there was comedy and it was also a very deep show. Like, it was, but other than the characters having weird shaped heads, it was very realistic. You know, it dealt with real world problems. And it's for a show that had 5 seasons. I honestly can't think of a single bad episode. Like, they're all good. Like, I mean, yeah, there are some episodes that are hard to watch, like Ms. Perfect, Wayne Harold, and Pigeon Man, just to name a few. They're hard to watch, but that doesn't mean they're bad. They're still very good. You know, there's heart-wrenching episodes, though. You know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Another thing was that I wanted to mention was, I think it was in the early 2000s that Nickelodeon started coming out with new networks, like, but the one that really stood out to me was Noggin / The Inn, which this one would later become the Nick Jr. channel. But Noggin / The Inn, which was it was a show that basically from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. it was Noggin, which was all like, it was like classic Nicktoons, like, I mean, not Nick Jr. shows, excuse me, like Little Bear, Franklin, Gullah Gullah Island, and maybe a few others, and obviously there was like other shows as well. And then from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. it was The Inn, which was basically like, this was like the teen, kind of like the teen Nick of the early 2000s. It was, you know, had all these like teen dramas like Degrassi, 24/7, Being Eve, Radio Free Roscoe, Instant Star. You know, obviously they'd introduce new shows all the time. There was reruns of Caitlin's Way, which was on Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, you know, like 2002, I believe. And reruns of Daria, which originated on MTV. And because this was my teenage years, I absolutely loved this network. I was glued to it. Like, like almost every day night after school, every weekday night I would watch it pretty much. And they also had a website which it wasn't really like social media, but you would make an avatar and you'd play with like you had all these like cool little mini games and stuff. But the point is, the reason I brought this up is because these shows these teen dramas that were on there were so deep. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they would talk about, like, real-world things that, like, well, teenagers go through and stuff. And it's like, I feel like now, to keep it real, I think people are, and this is coming from someone who has mental health issues, I feel like people are too sensitive nowadays. Like, you can't have stuff like that on a network that's essentially for kids. You can't have these like deep things anymore, or anything that's too graphic or whatever, or too over the top, because it's like, oh no, we can't do that. But and I'll end it with this. This year they're going to be rebooting. They're coming out with like new CGI shows. Like there's going to be a SpongeBob reboot and a Rugrats reboot. I'm willing to give them a chance. Like when I was back in my 20s, I always hated reboots and remakes, but once I got into my 30s, I was like, that one, I become more lenient. So I was like, I'll give them a chance. Like, I've given their other reboots a chance, which that's another thing that I feel like this is going to be a hit or miss. I don't know if this is going to work or not, because it's like, there are other reboots that they've done, like in the most recent years, for all that, Double Dare, and they do like an Are You Afraid of the Dark miniseries reboot. And here's the thing. The Double Dare, as someone who still enjoys the original versions of those shows, the new All That is and the Double Dare and Are You Afraid of the Dark reboot were good, but they just didn't have that same like fire as the originals. It felt like when Vince McMahon and WWE tried to reboot the NWO. So it's like, and the funny thing is that these shows, it's like the Double Dare reboot. What happened? Like, there's no reruns or anything. I was like, oh, was it a flop maybe? Is it that even today's kids, the target audience, maybe they didn't even like it? Now it's like, oh, it failed, just get rid of it. Same with the All That reboot. When you barely see reruns of I don't think there's been any new episodes, and there'll be like a rerun maybe like every Saturday night on the TNET channel. That's it. Like, what happened? Is that another one? Like, did that fail too? Unless maybe they're working on new episodes or something. I don't know, but I don't know. The fact that there's literally barely any reruns, that's not a good sign. And the Are You Afraid of the Dark reboot, they really didn't do anything with it. But like I said, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Like I said, I'll give these new shows a chance. Until next time, though, thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of the year.